Good morning, Greg.
Good morning, David.
How are you?
I am excellent. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, we definitely have audio, so that's a good thing.
Yay.
Woo! Hi, everybody. Everybody doing good?
I hope everyone's doing good.
I see Dominic. That's good. Hey, Dominic, question, and you can just answer in the chat. But can you get on the Discord and uh, see it? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
we
general question.
we had a glitch,
So
and
I
so
just want to make sure,
yeah.
um, you know, other people can see it.
I'll put a message in there.
That'd be really good. Um, yeah. So it's kind of been a week. It's kind of been a week. Good morning, Pierre.
Hey, Pierre, how you doing?
So we've had some fun with printers again. It seems like right now is the season for them to you know, break.
Um, sure.
Right here and there, they're just not happy right now.
Well, I was printing up a storm the last 2 days.
Okay, Greg's is behaving. Actually, yeah,
Well,
my
actually,
printers are okay.
mine when I switched the the fan stuff,
Yeah.
all of a sudden got heat creep. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna. And so I switched back to my other firmware, and it's fine.
Is that the one
Should
at,
have just left it with the defaults because it worked fine.
on the bench at work or at home?
Yeah, at work.
Okay. Yeah, those ones. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's a thing, people. It is a thing.
yeah. And Discord's working for Dominic.
Beauty. I am glad to hear that. For that means it's just that one issue.
Yeah. So
So,
hopefully it works for Stig because
yeah.
Stig was having some issues.
I
So
mean, not mentioning names. Jeez.
I'm sorry.
Or not.
A person was having issues.
A random person. That's good. I was there a minute ago. Okay, yeah. Okay, I just caught up on that comment. Sorry. Um, yeah, very good, very good. So, Greg,
David.
why don't we start with something easy for people to get into?
Well, we could thank people.
That's what I meant. Easy.
Oh, all right.
Okay, hold on. I gotta push a
It,
button, and now.
you'll have to tell me if you can hear me this time, because if you can hear me, I want to thank all these wonderful people here that support us on Patreon. We've got Helge at the top tree support level and everyone else. And these lovely people get to join us in Discord when it's working. And most of the time it is working. So we have great conversations in Discord, and that's a perk by joining us on Patreon. And then we have other little perks now and again, like our live streams where everyone joins us, and it's always fun to see everyone in person and whatnot on those live streams. So, yeah.
I loved it. All right. So,
So there's news.
there's news, and there's we like the news. Before Pierre asked her, are we talking about Clipper?
It wasn't on the list. We could, if there's something specific you want to talk.
Well, we mentioned it last week, a bit.
Did we?
Yeah.
Well, I guess. Yeah.
We're gonna do like a how-to configure Clipper.
Yeah, well, we can go through that. It's
It's pretty easy. Yes.
yeah.
Yes. I'm gonna fix my video while we do some stuff too. But I don't like being off-centered, David. You know what I mean? Just slightly. Okay. All right. So
All
we
right.
have news. As one of the pieces of news, I almost called an ambulance for Greg.
Yes, Dave thought I was having a stroke.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I was watching. So if some of you watch Stefan from CNC Kitchen, he's had a couple videos on the ARC self-supporting, um, uh, you know, overhangs. which is really cool. Now, you used to have to run a Python script and this and that to generate them, but the gentleman that was working on it, he's forked Super Slicer, and he's called it Super Plesser. And
How original.
yeah,
That's why I thought Greg was having a stroke.
yeah, he thought I was having a stroke.
What? What are we talking
But
about?
what's really cool is it's basically Super Slicer or Prusa Slicer, a version of it, but they've integrated in, and it's in alpha. So if you want to try it, you can. They've integrated the arc overhang into it, so you can print. If you've watched Stefan's video, the arc are self-supporting, and you can print a whole overhang, but it starts in the corners doing small arcs and then gets bigger and does more arcs, and it will print them at a full 90-degree angle to the print bed. It's really quite interesting.
Let's see, does it actually have? We have a link, but I don't know if the link actually like has the pictures of how it. would
No, but
work.
I do have a couple. I can show a couple screenshots of
Posted in the Discord. Yes.
Stefan's video. Maybe.
Yep. No, if you. So like we've talked about like other
It's-
methods of doing this before too. So
That the video is not loading.
it's fine. So I guess the real question here is overhangs an issue, and I think from a sustainability standpoint, it's nice not to be using like all that support material,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So like you are cutting down, and that's kind of what tree support was the original addresser of, because you don't end up with this big block of like support material. It could in fact build like a smaller tree sometimes, but sometimes it was bigger, right? It just depended on how the tree formed.
Well, I think just the evolution of the logic around slicing
Yeah,
is cool. Like, I mean, an arc is a simple thing, right?
it
So
is. Yeah.
being able to just use an arc to do what we would normally like, and the reason it works so well is it prints, like it prints the arc and then it prints directly beside it, and it like self bonds to each other, right? So
Yep.
it doesn't have the, like, your bridging issue
Mm-hmm.
that your typical, bridging drooping would have. So
Yep.
they take something that would be bridged and then they add multiple arcs, big arcs, small arcs, whatever it takes to fill that area.
Yeah.
There is a picture, and I'll post it in where is it here?
So when you think about like the arcs in general and how 3D printers work, right? You do have a forgiveness of the next layer, right? Which is how we can start printing overhangs at more steeper values. Is you can end up stacking the next layer almost straight off the edge of the other one if your coolant's good enough, and that way you can kind of branch out and move the printer that way. And so, like Greg said, like the originally slicers were built like
Straight lines.
straight lines, and hey, let's not let, if we can print a straight line and it doesn't overlap more than X degrees, it's fine. If it does, we're either going to fail, or like if you had support on build plate on in the slicer, that's when you would generate support for that piece. But arcs open up a lot of opportunity, especially for pieces that would require support between parts of the same print, right? Because that's always a hard situation to support 100% correctly, right? To especially to remove the support after. If you're not using dissolvable, it can get to the point where it's like this block in between your print, and you gotta like rip it, take it off, and see, kind of see if you're lucky enough, if it doesn't scar the model, right? or if it comes off at all. Like I remember printing a Stitch from Lilo and Stitch between the mouth and the teeth on
Right.
the support. Yeah, it looked like Hannibal Lecter's mask for the
Uh,
rest of its existence. So
I did post a link to all 3DP of the arc overhang if
I
you
do see. Oh yes, yes, yes.
if
Yeah.
you want
So,
to see kind of an example of arc overhang.
yeah. So
Uh,
I mean,
that's a pretty good example of showing
that's
kind of what you can do.
yeah,
Um, and I think it'll only get better over time,
yeah,
like because once people, once one person who's really smart figures, out how to, make it work, and then a whole bunch of other people get inspired, and then they tweak it, right? So I think it can only get better from here. But I mean, it's pretty impressive what it can do on its own right now. So all moved together. Yeah.
so I mean, people have been doing that with hot glue guns for years. So why not 3D printers
Yeah, and
now?
I mean, it's really cool that it's evolving, right?
Hmm.
Like, that's going to open up a lot of things. Like, there's some, there's always been, models that you want to print that have a weird, you have to put so many supports to support the bottom and whatnot, and then you've got the really nasty looking bottom when you pull off the support.
Yeah.
So if this can even help that kind of thing, that's even better, right? So
And
yeah,
so, I mean, what we're going to do is we'll do a few test prints with using a couple different methods and slicing techniques, and then we'll show the results probably, and
yeah.
then test it out. There's a small update. So if you open your Prusa slicers, it'll be like, hey, there's a new version.
Yeah.
And it's because there's literally like almost no changes inside of the version.
One
Um,
tiny change.
itty bitty change,
Yeah.
and it's a Tesla change, if you will. Prusa
Well,
is finally shipping the XL.
yeah. Yeah. So they added profiles. So they did two things. They added the XL profiles
Mhm.
because now they're officially you can convert your pre-order to an actual order and they'll ship you it. But they're only shipping, I think, the first, few hundred people that got in for the pre-order 2 years ago, whenever that
Yeah,
was, right?
yeah.
So you had to be fast when they did that. So they're starting with those. The only other thing that they added to the 2.5.1 is everyone is probably familiar who's used Prusa with the monolithic, which was a really nice smooth finish to the top of your print.
Hmm.
Well, they've added monolithic lines. So that is the other fill pattern that they've done instead of monolithic, the monolithic lines. So it just changes it a slightly bit more. So it's less over extrusion basically, because when it did the one line, it would still continue extruding a little slower, and then it would do the next line. So now it's just a little bit improved. So other than that, yeah, it was just the
Oh, baby.
announcement that they're actually shipping the XL, and then I don't know how I didn't notice this. Everyone else is going to say you, but I just realized that they sell Delta printers really expensively now.
Yeah.
I didn't realize in 2021 they either partnered or acquired a Delta printer company, and so
Yeah.
now they I'm not sure if it was a partnering or whatever, but yeah. So
It's
that's
there
kind
and it's happening.
and they're expensive. They're like $5,000 for a Delta. So
Yeah. What was
they
it?
must be amazing Deltas.
There was was it Artemis? I forget the brand, but yeah, there was one that was super expensive in the States too. Um, But yes, so you have the bit of change there. No official tree supports in that version.
No,
If you're
no.
waiting for that, it's 2.6. I think
Yeah,
it's interesting.
that's still in the alpha that we talked
Yeah,
about last week, Alpha 5. They're not at Alpha 6 or anything yet. But this 2.5.1 is the last version of 2.5,
yeah,
unless there's some sort of weird security bug.
yeah. And like I was thinking about it earlier, and it's interesting how like let's think back, everybody. Okay, everybody, jump in a time machine. We're going back 5 or 4.5 years. Okay, now think about how different all the slicers were. Think like right, like
Mhm.
Kira did not like Prusa slicer wasn't a thing. We still had slicer, right? They hadn't picked it
Slip.
up yet.
Yeah.
Knick 3R, and then like we had the repeatier. We had like
Yeah.
I think Kira would have been version 3 at the most. Like it might have been even back before 3, and then you had like proprietary like matter control. Raise 3D
Yeah.
was around, right? Like we had a couple main slicers that all had very different features. And yes, Pierre, simplified 3D was the thing back then, right?
It
Like
was.
4 years, 5 years ago, simplified 3D was actually a great purchase because
Yeah.
it was the only one that could guarantee you like good prints without having to like tweak everything in it. And like
Yeah.
even our channel at the beginning when we started, like some of our videos were like, hey, how do you tweak this out of the slicer so that it actually prints, right?
Yeah.
And then I think it was like 4 or 3 years ago, like for Kira, Kurasum came out. But we can see this convergence
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Well,
slicers happening
yeah,
now,
and features, right?
right?
So
Yeah.
whether it's um, the what was the feature they added to Kira for it sped up the processing,
Oh, the Arachne engine.
Arachne engine,
Yeah, and
and
that went to Prusa now. So
yeah, and
okay.
and then they've added the tree supports that now has always been everyone's been
Yeah.
in Kira forever, right? So now Prusa has
Yeah.
that.
And the tree supports in Prusa, it's interesting because as of the next version of both of them will be the same.
Yes.
Okay? Like we're not talking like one will have a version and one will have their other version.
No.
They're going to be the same,
Yeah.
right?
They're both incorporating the new tree support version algorithm into their browser or into their browsers. Oh my
So
god.
you've got
Into
like
their
these,
slicers.
right? You got these two giants now, and it's like which one's better? And we can honestly say it doesn't matter,
No.
right? Between the two,
They're very
they're,
like, I mean, there might maybe a killer feature will come out that no one has thought of yet.
yep,
Like maybe the ARC support will come to Prusa before it gets to Kira, but I bet you the ARC overhangs will be in both of them at some point here, right?
it
Like,
probably will. I mean, seems to be the trend right now because like we had the whatever the first one Pleckler slicer or something like that, the
yeah,
first one we were talking about, and then we had so like we talked simplified, but even when you think like new, let's use air quotes, we
right.
looked at Bamboo Studios slicer. That was like
Yep,
an
and that's based on
amalgamation of
Prusa,
all
right?
of them. Yeah, like the interface reminded me more of like simplified than Prusa, but is based on Prusa,
And it
right?
was more webby than
Yeah,
anything else, but which is fine. I don't that's fine. Having a slightly more modern interface or different interface that
hmm
helps differentiate you a little bit,
for sure.
and that's fine. And that's fine.
And that's where
The
like
next,
corporate branding, right?
yeah, the next thing everyone's going to be doing, David, is adding AI into everything.
Oh my goodness! And let's talk about. I'm gonna switch this. I'm gonna switch my scene so you guys can see this. I mean, good deal.
Yeah, yeah. They're still limiting it. You have to if you on their list there, they do have on the bottom there they indicate the rules be a beta tester, but they are opening it up for their new K1 AI printer. I'm not sure what the AI part of it is, but they have the rules and regulations, and so I mean they've been teasing this new printer for a while, and so we still know nothing about it. We don't know if it's going to be a Core XY or a standard bed flinger. No idea. We so we know nothing about it. So we don't know if they've just done a straight, rip off of something, or if they've come up with something completely novel, which is, I mean, hopefully they have. We just don't know. Um, I'm thinking the K. This is my prediction. K means clipper. Hmm. It's. I'm thinking this is the first clipper series of printer from them that is their entire, because we had their clipper screen that you can get, right, that what's it called? Yeah, I'm blanking. Sonic Pad, there you go. So the Sonic Pad was their first foray, right, and then it was compatible with all of their printers, or sorry, their main boards. Um, so so my prediction is this is a Clipper related printer, which is fine. Like I think that's a lot of things are going that way. I know that Marlin was a little upset the other day. I saw on Twitter because there was a glitch and they lost some funding from one of their supporters, and then it turned out that Big Tree Tech um, hadn't switched their payment method because apparently GitHub no longer supports PayPal.
Oh,
And so they lost their funding temporarily for like and then it was fixed. So
yeah.
yeah. So because Creality has always been a big supporter of Marlin, and so has Big Tree Tech.
Yeah.
So they supported it. So it's interesting to see everyone leaning so heavily on Clipper.
So just to kind of circle back in on that Creality campaign is like in the past what Creality has done is just ship the printer, say here's a free gift for you, and they'll send it to like influencers or like YouTubers with really like bigger followings, and then they're hoping that you'll show the product ahead of the time even if it doesn't work. They did that with like the smart and the color change one, right? But
Yeah, CR6.
yeah, and so like instead of just doing that, like lots of people were angry because it's like you're sending us this printer that we can't review. We can't, like, I don't know what it'll look like when it comes out. But now they're like, okay, well here's a beta version of the printer, but you
Yeah.
still have to sell it. That's part of the rule contest. The more likely you are to share it and sell it, the more likely you are to get into the beta program there.
Yeah.
So
So it's yeah. I mean, would I try one? Yes. Would I
maybe.
be brutally honest about if I hated it or not? Yeah, I would, because I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
I gotta be honest if I think something doesn't
that's
work.
just it, right?
But that's why they want you to send them some sort of report, right?
Yep.
To very, like, if you see, the wiring is bad, let them know. If this is bad, let them know. So
Hmm.
I think it's a slightly better way of doing the beta test, I guess.
At
But
least it's a more upfront way.
yeah, the
Like
more absolutely.
you're
Uh,
not like, well, we're beta testing, but we won't tell you that's what we're doing. And
yeah.
that's
Well,
probably
and I think when companies, and we've talked about it before, other companies have shipped products and then they had to modify the products and then reship them, and there was a whole catastrophe, right? So I think hopefully this will maybe, iron out a bunch of the bugs, but
yep.
yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm interested to see if it's a if it's a smaller, like you know, clipper printer, like a zero, or if it's going to be
Like a
something bigger, like
Core XY maybe.
bigger Core XY of some sort.
I mean,
And
technically, when you say fast, it should be a Core XY.
I would think, I would think. I
Like
mean,
technically.
the last number of printers out there that are getting rave reviews have been, closed source, not Clipper necessarily, and Core XY. So,
Yep.
so we'll have
We'll
to see.
see. Like I
Yeah.
guess, right? Like, and that's an interesting segue, I would think, into the next kind of era of our topics.
Yep.
And that's open. What has open source? I'm going to read this verbatim, but whoops. What has open source really done for 3D printing? So the word and like the methods of open source, what has it done?
Well,
So we're not talking about the patent expiring because that's different. So when the patent expired, that's when we actually were allowed to use like the i3 frame and prices went down. I'm talking open source.
well, um, if you kind of circle back to our slicer topic, um, we can say that it's definitely allowed for innovation in the slicers, right? Because Kira has adopted an open source stance on their pieces, and so has then also then incorporated some of those. So,
But
I
has it? I mean, so yeah, but like we were just talking about, both the big slicers now are both open source, and they both just keep borrowing from each other.
right, but isn't that kind of the some of the genesis of open source is that people develop pieces, right? And
You
then
could, yeah.
and optimize them and make them stable and reliable, and everyone can review them. And then,
But
uh,
what happened? I
the-
guess the question though on that is what drives that process more. So like if you think of open source right now, and and like it's not just right now, but like open source was never meant to be applied to like hardware, right? Like it was always geared towards more software ends of
right.
things. And so like when you think of that, what's more like what's more likely to drive innovation? Open source or a company making money to make a better product?
Okay.
So like
I mean,
I'm not
definitely
not saying
the open source software side of it has been very beneficial to the 3D printing. I would have to say, but for the hardware side of things, yeah, I don't know that we've seen as much innovation. The patent stuff was the big thing that
yeah.
changed, but that's not open source. So
No, and
yeah,
that's patent law, right? And so
yeah,
like when you think open source and like I don't know who WebEnder 2, hello. WebEnder 2 says, but what they are borrowing from each other is innovations, so they all get better. They do. And I'm not saying they're
they,
not getting
they do.
better, but I'm saying if they're borrowing the innovations as a whole they're getting better. But I think like when we look at open source and the lack of, let's say, lack of funding for the right, like you're depending now on a community of people that aren't getting paid or that are doing it because they're passionate about it, but
Right.
eventually that pool dries out, right? Like without
Yeah,
Ultimaker there
yeah.
would be no Kira,
That's
right?
true.
Without
Uh,
Prusa, there would be no Prusa slicer. Without Raise 3D, there'd be no Imagine slicer, whatever they call theirs. I forget. Raise. I forget the slicer name now,
but
right?
okay, but for the actual hardware, so the hardware issue is a lot of companies do copyright and patent their invention because they want to make money off of it, right?
Right.
So I'm trying to think of something that has happened hardware wise that we would have to call an innovation or whatnot that was open source. And off
Yeah.
the top of my head, I can't think of any.
Right. If
Take
you look at car companies as an example, if Tesla was open sourced, would you have the car you have today? If there was no money behind that particular vehicle, and I'm not saying they're good or bad, I'm just saying if they didn't have closed source and they didn't, have that in-house innovation, would we still have the same product? Like the first push on Prusa Slicer was from Prusa,
Yeah.
right? And then the community at large gets involved, and then WebEnder says, does that pool, like, does it dry up or is it just a cycle? I would argue it evaporates and then it rains
Well,
again.
it could be a cycle.
Yeah.
I kind of maybe agree with you, because um, you know there's always kind of new blood coming into the system too, that want to contribute and whatnot. And I think, as with anything, like, you want to, when you're passionate about it and you have time to be passionate about it, you're going to contribute, right?
Yep.
And then sometimes life gets in the way, and then so your main job, maybe, because a lot of this is hobby side stuff for all of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there are days when I've got to do lots of kid stuff, right, with my family and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So it maybe later on I'll get back in more in depth into it once all my kids are out of the house, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think it is cyclical to a certain degree, but the hardware side is the tough one, because I don't know that, besides the Voron stuff,
Mm-hmm.
there, which I think has really helped push the community to solid Core XY and whatnot, just showing off what they can do
Yeah.
with their designs and the community iteration. So I think the Voron is a good example of evolution in open source.
But again, you
side.
can't open source hardware. I mean, people say it all the time,
But they did.
but it's not open source. They're like open source, like you can apply the words open source to hardware,
What's the
but
design?
but okay, maybe so the design on a piece of paper, but that physical object, it can't be open sourced. Like they can apply the word. It sounds really good, right? Like, for example, like the Ender 3 was the first open source printer, right? And all that really meant was you got more of the details for the firmware, and like they posted CAD models of the printer and they're like, yeah, it's open sourced.
But
Well, no,
that's when
it's
they.
open platform,
Okay. All right.
right? But it's not
Uh,
open sourced. Like Marlin is
but
more
they
open source
if you
project, right?
if
But
you modify a Voron design and contribute back to the design and whatnot, and attribute the original design, isn't that still, you've improved the hardware and contributed back to the open source project?
yeah.
So isn't that
It,
then?
it's again, it's like a platform, and the platform is an open platform, right? But like open source was a term developed for coding,
Hey,
processing, and software. Um, Dominic, or no, Stig says, with all the problems that with Tesla, I would say closed source is not a good thing, and people buying is actually buying bleeding edge of tech. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not going to judge Tesla because I think that their opinion is formed in your head, how you like them or not. So we don't need to judge them. It's just an example. Dominic says, why would someone invest their life savings on a new idea only to have an established company run with their idea, benefiting from economies of scale?
yeah.
Microsoft is a great example of that. right? And Google, actually, when they see a product that they like,
They
for,
duplicate it, and
they buy it or duplicate it, right? Like look at so let's use Minecraft as an example. Minecraft is if you guys don't know, it's like a game, open world platform, right?
I
But
hope.
Microsoft was like, man, this is pretty sweet, and we wanna get down on this. So it was open sourced when it started, and then it was closed source. They started up their game, and Microsoft bought them, and now they're part of Microsoft, but their dev and development hasn't quit. In fact, it's growing since they've been purchased, right? So, like, you can see how a company backing the product gives more funding and resource, right? Rather than just having like an open source or an open platform.
All of a sudden, you got louder on my end. I'm not sure why.
I don't know. Did you hit a button?
Uh,
So Pierre says like the Vorn and Ratrig vCore, and again, yeah, those are both open platform. They'll say open source, but I would argue that like open platform is a better word for hardware, and open source is a better word for firmware software. I think that when you look at, so like if you take Big Tree Tech as an example of
right.
hardware, I recently read a comment on one of their forums. The person was kind of mad, which I I
Can't
guess
imagine why.
he said like, how can you sell a product without support, right? Like this is an open source thing, and there's no support. And then the comment right underneath it was, well, they don't have to. They give you the documentation and the board layout, but they depend on like other people
Yeah, it's
to
the
answer the question,
It's
and
it's David's favorite word.
the community.
Community.
And like we answer those questions honestly, right? But we don't answer them online anymore. Like in forums, we'll take your direct questions here. We'll take your direct questions in like our info at
Discord.
3D Make It on the
Yep.
Discord, right? We'll do that. But anytime we've actually responded to a question online with our branded account, we always get blacklisted for self-promotion. And it's like, we're not self-promoting. Some guy asked a question
And we
and it
answered.
just happened to
Yeah.
have our logo on the image, right? I'm sorry, we knew the answer. WebEnder, in hardware open source equal prior art. The patent system complicates things. It does.
It
Again,
does.
the patent system was a big problem for 3D printing because,
Yep.
and what it was in 2004, all those patents expired, or 2007,
2008 or whatever.
sometime
Yeah.
in there, and then we had the boom, and now we have all these clones of all the same
Yeah.
printer. They're great. It's
Yeah.
great. It's a
Well,
great
and then
time. Yeah.
the heated enclosure patent just like 2 years ago just expired. So now
Yep.
you can have a different type of heated enclosure, and so there is issues. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, people invent something, they spent a lot of time, and they want to, patent their design and make money. I get that
Yep.
because they made this innovation, right? And I totally understand that, and I think it's valid. Um, Now, other people want to give it away to the world. Like, that's fine too.
Yep.
You use Tesla as an example. Tesla gives all their patents to everyone to use. Now, they don't say whether you have to pay them for the patents, but they've opened them up so that anyone can take their patents and use them. Now, I don't know how they're going to make money by doing that, but
Right. Like,
they did, right? And that's the thing. Like Prusa sells printers. They have their buddy board that is their board, and you can break the little tab off and put your custom firmware and whatnot on it, but you void the warranty, right? So there's ways of making money, but then keeping it open. So it's a tight. I think it's a tightrope to walk.
it is. Like Gary T makes the point too, and that it was a point I actually made on that thread I was reading. But like, if you want support on a board, don't buy a $30 board from a company that doesn't offer support, right? You'll have to buy a Duet,
Or buy it from a
or
reseller
buy it
who
from
you
a
can
Yeah.
right?
Or like what's his name? I think Dominic uses their board. Like the easy board, I can't remember. TH3D did it.
TH3D, right?
Yeah, right. And then they'll have, and that's a reseller. And so again, they'll support their board because that's the board they've made and they're selling to you. And yeah, like lots of examples are coming up of open source projects like Open Office.
Right.
That one, Apache, it's under the Apache Foundation, that project. So
Yeah.
like that's been years. I mean, but we have seen companies, for example, like Greg was talking, like with that, like in the tech industry, like Google, for example, they had this free product for many years, 10 years,
Yep.
free for education. You can use this. Don't worry. It's free. But once everybody had a taste and everybody was in, they're like, boom, we're charging, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right. And once everybody got stuck in that ecosystem, now thankfully we haven't seen that too much in our neck of the woods and 3D printing worlds.
Right.
Like Big Tree Tech hasn't like flipped pricing on their boards and been like, okay, now they're $90 a piece.
Right.
Thank you so much. Right.
Now I assume if you buy the BQ stuff out of the Big Tree Tech, you're buying a whole printer and whatnot, and I assume you get some support maybe from them, but
Right.
I'm not sure how much, right? But you look at Prusa. Well, Prusa will give you support. They have you can call in and whatnot, but they're more closed, right?
Well, and they're supporting their platform. Right?
Yes.
They're not just supporting a piece, they're supporting the platform. And even the support, like in BigQ, like Greg was saying, I've seen people like, hey, my BigQ printer's not printing, and it's not Big Tree Tech that's coming to the rescue or BigQ in the rescue in their forum. It's other people going, well, hey, have you tried this? Have you adjusted this? And then people getting mad at them too at the same time. Well, you're an idiot. Just search this problem in the forum. Why don't you just use the search button? You're a jerk. And that's why I hate the word community online, because people are angry instead of being helpful, right? What just Stig said, or buy a printer that doesn't need upgrades and support. And then Raymond retorted, is there such a thing? Well, if you have enough money, yes. I don't know, man. Like,
I don't know, like, because you know, things can break. I don't care if you buy a $5,000 Prusa Delta, or you buy the Prusa XL or whatever. Like, things can happen, they can break, and you may have to call for support. And depending on the financial and platform support that the company offers, like David said, like, you might get it or you might be thrown to the wolves, right?
Yep.
It depends on the company. Like, Prusa has very good support and very good manuals and very good documentation. And what's the new one that everyone Ray, you just got
Bamboo.
the Bamboo.
It's a new company. Seems great.
It's a new company, right? Like, do they have good support? We hope so. But again, that's not open source, right? That's more of a closed environment.
Right.
They have their slicer, they have their infrastructure and everything. So hopefully that will be a better, you pay more for it, right? And part of that paying more is to have that support and whatnot, right? Because they're promoting like you said, a whole infrastructure, right?
Yep. And I mean, there are companies that will start with great support. Not to say like they don't maintain that support, but like there are companies that will change their support method, shall we say, after they've started selling volume. Then they're like, okay, well, I guess we've got the volume behind us now, so let's just release this printer to the world without even trying it and hope for the best.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully there's
what?
Hopefully there's less of those out there, like, because they're not going to last as long with that. And I think we'll see more and more mature companies come out, but it also comes down to pricing, right? You know, if I want a $300 printer, I'm not expecting a lot of support, right?
No, but at the same time, $300 printer is a lot of money for some people.
Yeah,
right? Like if you're
yeah,
like
but
a kid or a student or like somebody lower income and you're getting into this and you're on a fixed income and you're looking at this printer going, man, $350, that's a
oh,
lot of
I get
money.
it. I
And
get it.
like I think like so when you buy from a reseller, it's better than Creality. It just
Right.
is, right? Or Big Tree
Yeah.
Tech if you can
Yeah,
find the
because
boards
you have a
because
problem,
yeah,
you
the
go talk to Ray, and Ray will help
yeah,
you.
right, Ray, or who,
Or you can pay Ray $150 an hour, and he'll fix it.
yeah, right.
Right,
I,
or whichever.
but like when you buy have that relationship, you do take some of that unknown out of it, and that's where like yeah, if you're gonna buy a printer, maybe look local, right? Like in the States,
Yeah,
there's like TH3D, Printed Solid. There's like lots of companies down there that
yeah.
like deal. Up in Canada, we have like three, and Ray, the
Ray
School 3D
Ray
is one of
Ray
them, and
Ray has a good quote here. 3D printing is just a hobby. People need to remember that. It can be just a hobby, but some people want to make it a business. And so those people that want to make it a
mm-hmm,
business, they're going to buy the more probably expensive printers,
mm-hmm,
right? That have the support of a full company that
mm-hmm.
backs them, right?
Like the Rays
Um,
3Ds of the world, or
right. Or
why can't I?
Prusas
Yeah,
or
I can't
you
remember all
know,
the brands now. They all pop in my head, but the brands go away. Plus one for Printed Solid, great group of guys. Yeah, and like I've ordered some filament ones from them, but we're up in Canada, so it's hard for us to deal with a lot of the U.S. companies, just because like when you deal with that, you have to deal with like the border and the tariffs and all that stuff. It's just
right.
weird.
And Pierre says hospitals are starting
Mm,
to get into 3D printing, and you will see the bigger corporate, Stratasys and some of the other bigger companies have medical grade products that have a support, but you're probably going to pay 10 grand for a printer, right?
probably, or
That and plus a support contract,
I
right?
mean the what's it, Form
For that kind of
Labs?
thing.
Is it Form Labs, the
Form
resin one?
Labs is
They
one,
do like, and those have been in dentist office for years.
right?
They'll use those to like print the
Visalines and stuff like
Visalines
that.
and like crowns and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So like we are seeing an influx of 3D printing, and there is 3D printing in industry. We talk about it all the time. Like I think Mercedes makes parts for some of their parts for the cars.
Yep.
Tesla was 3D printing parts for a while. The Ford Maverick has a whole system that they've developed, so you can 3D print parts and clamps and hooks for
To
their
go inside the cab
right.
and whatnot. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's like, and the exchange rate. Boo. Yeah, the exchange rate is
Yeah.
even. That's
Right.
probably the bigger one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The printer's
It's
only
only
$500, but it'll cost you
yeah
5,000
in
because you have to
Canadian.
pay the American exchange
Us
rate.
poor Canucks, I tell you. But when we look at open source as a whole, there are good parts about it in the software, but I think that we are kind of stagnating at a point where everybody's just like, oh, well, you have this feature, I'll add this feature too. Oh, you have this feature, so then I'll just add this feature too.
Yeah.
Right. I think we're getting to the trade-off point, and
Yeah.
like WebEnder said too, they're both getting better, which they
Oh,
are. They're
absolutely.
trading features. It's just we're trading features. Like one of them's not really trying to innovate anymore. They just wait for the other one to go, oh, I have a Arachne engine. Then they're like, sweet, so do
Well,
we.
yeah,
So
and you look at the Arc Overhangs. That's someone completely outside of both of those that
yep.
has developed it, and now that hopefully will come back into the main project at some point.
Yep.
Right.
And the cool part is in our area, we do have lots of programmers that love 3D printing. We do have engineers that love 3D printing, right? So
Yep.
there is a field of professionals that can actually develop for this platform, which is
Yep.
great. Which is probably the best thing that has happened to 3D printing since the patent expired. Everybody could start, like the professionals, and this comes back to the does the lake run out, or does it just keep cycling? And yeah, I think it evaporates and then we get more rain and then you get influx, right? But like you see companies slowly, like Kira as example, right? They have their slicer, but there's some features now that you need that subscription for, right?
Yeah.
Astroprint, you need the
Yeah.
subscription for more printers.
Yeah.
So, they did it with the, what was the big
But
one in the resin
I
slicing?
don't
I
I
forget that
don't
one, but
I don't fault them though,
it's not a
right?
fault.
Because they need to maintain their business so they
Mm-hmm.
can offer these things. So having a product, that we can use, and then there's some premium features that you can unlock if you want to pay. I think that's not a horrible model. If you start taking away some features we're all used to, which Autodesk, um, has companies do from time to time,
Yeah.
and that's frustrating, right? When
Yep.
you had a community using this stuff and then it's yanked away and there's not much explanation on why they did it. That's frustrating.
So Stig posted a comment there that Heineken uses 3D printers to make parts for their product lines, and they're using Ultimaker. And again, yeah,
Yeah.
Ultimaker is an interesting printer actually in itself
Yeah,
because
they have quite a few
they
different
do,
ones.
right? And like they're in that prosumer slash pro grade area
And they
where
were originally owned by Stratasys, right? They were purchased by Stratasys at one point.
no, Ultimaker wasn't. That was MakerBot.
Oh, yeah, but now they've
But
merged,
now they've
so
merged, and I don't know. But I don't think.
I
I
think they
think
spun it. They might have spun it off,
yeah, I
right?
think they one bought it from Stratasys, so I think it's their separate Ultimate now, which is
Yeah.
very confusing. But as long as the free version isn't crippled so much, it doesn't. I think it's okay, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
There are.
Yeah.
Why can't I remember? It was Chitu. Chitu.
G2 slicer, yeah, where
Yeah,
they lock their boards
they
after
lock
a
their
while.
board and their slicer, and they're like,
Yeah.
well, if you want to use this stuff, you got to pay. And there's still free parts in it, but some of the parts behind the paywall are actually pretty useful and make you print faster on a resin printer. So
Right.
they're like saying, yeah, you can use this, but your printer's going to take longer, and the feature set is kind of
Which is that's kind of like, yeah, that's not great.
yeah.
Like, so it'll be interesting to see also what because Creality also has that resin one coming out that's supposed to be faster. So maybe they've ditched you know them altogether, and now
Yeah.
they're going to be completely in house. I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Well, like Creality switched their they switched their resin printers right when that all happened. It was actually at the tail end.
And Dominic, that's why I quietly said Autodesk,
Autodesk.
because
Fusion
they own
360.
Fusion. They own Fusion 360.
Yes, they certainly do. And Autodesk is I mean, Fusion 360 is a great product. We mentioned like Rhino and other ones. Fusion's one of those ones that's like, yeah, it's free, but you're gonna have to work to get it free, and then to keep it free, you'll lose some of the like as the
The exporting and stuff
Yeah.
changed, and
what Gary says. Does Ultimaker have the continuous carbon fiber second spool? And I honestly
was
don't
there
know.
there was I can't
I
remember
thought
the
they
company.
did.
That was a company where I don't was that Ultimaker, or was that
It would make sense if it was them.
or was that I remember seeing ads for that all the time, but I don't remember who that was. Let's not talk Adobe. No, we won't. This
No,
3D
don't get
printing. We won't.
don't,
We
don't
won't
get
get
us
it.
started on that. No. That's like a swear word.
Yeah, I think
Um,
I do think we have to thank
Mark
some
Forge,
people.
sorry, Marker Forge is the continuous
Maker
pair.
Forge.
Yeah,
Is it Mark Forge or
Mark
Maker?
Forged.
Mark Forged.
Yeah, they're the company that has the continuous. I'll push the button and be ready to be thanked in 3, 2.
And we want to thank all these wonderful people, Helge at the tree support level, and everyone else on this list. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do some of the stuff we do. So we appreciate all of you for supporting us. And if you are on this list, you get exclusive access to our Patreon Discord. So you can chat with us there and everything. So wonderful to have everyone along for the ride. And thanks again to everyone on this list. You guys are great.
I'm going to hit this other button, and then I'm just going to mention if you want to like, subscribe, share, that's awesome. You should share because that's really good. If you're not subscribed, hit subscribe, and then you can find us at 3dmakeit.ca for all the fun things that we have. We do have some firmware up. We have some of the like Kira profiles. We'll be updating the firmware to 2.12 very briefly here.
Yeah. And next week we've got a topic which we talked about the previous week, but we're going to focus more on it, right?
Yep.
David?
Yep. Because we like focusing. No, we chase squirrels a lot. But yes, so next week I have it written down in the document already for Clipper and Marlin too.
Yeah.
Added them in there.
Yeah.
And then after this,
we might not get to both of them. It might be one or the other.
Yeah.
So
we will do the first little touch of both in the live stream, and then after the light touch for both of them, just simple getting started. We'll take it offline for our Patreons to start the that'll be the kickoff for our Patreon workshopping stuff. So we'll take off. Well, once we do the light touch next week, which is March 26th, I did math. See, oh man, I would love to go to Murph, but
I would love to go too.
I don't think it's in the.
I don't even know the dates. I have to look, and I don't know that I can commit to that.
I don't know. I can either. It's in June.
That would be awesome.
It would be cool. It's not out of the picture, but it's probably not likely this year. It would be next year. We won't even be at the Calgary Maker Fair this year, which is closer to us. So
yeah. We'll keep you informed. And WebEnder, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe.
I feel like we've seen WebEnder before. I feel it deep in my bones. Anyway, what's
RM? Where is that?
Murph? Oh, Rocky Mountain.
Oh, is that closer?
Yeah. Rocky Mountain, April 22nd.
Okay, that sounds like
that's in Colorado.
That's closer.
That's closer. We'll see what we can do. Let us talk it. We'll talk it over. We'll talk it over. That's
okay.
Closer.
2 days, 35 sponsors. 3D printing nerd, Edge of Tech is going to be there.
Yeah. Okay.
TH3D. Okay,
we'll
so
that
is actually possibly closer to us.
Yeah.
So that might actually be drivable.
Yeah, I know, Gary. If I make it to Maker Fair this year, we won't have a table. We'll just come as attendees.
That's in April though.
What's wrong
April?
With April?
27. I think I've got something that weekend.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll look at it.
Can't get out of.
Yeah, I don't think we're doing a table this year, Gary, if we do make it to the Calgary Maker Fair. But we'll see. Anyway, friends, it has been a slice, and I've enjoyed our conversations this morning.
And just so our title's accurate, I'm going to mention PWM.
There you go. Did it. PWM. We will talk about it a bit next week anyway when we do firmwares. Yeah, that's okay. David and I will go. There you go. Cool, guys. All right. So it's been great. And we'll see you next week. And I do believe, I just want to say this out loud, the Discord for Patreons is fixed. If you do not have the Patreon channel showing up or it's inaccessible, you might have to relink your Patreon account in your dashboard.
Yeah, it's possible. Like if you've changed your email or something, that's associated with the Patreon.
Yeah.
I think it has to be the same as your Patreon and whatnot.
I think so. And the bot did have an alert on it, so I cleared the alerts and everything like that this morning too.
So hopefully everything's back for everyone in Patreon.
Yep. All right, guys. Have fun. Take care.
Bye.